Okay, so I am going to make my slab house. So I put my pieces in paper towel and in a plastic bag, and now they are firm and leather hard, but not super rock hard. The edges aren't bone dry. Oh, there's the template. So I am going to take the pieces out now that they are leather hard. I might keep the templates in case I need them, but I could also just trace this as well. So I've got all these pieces. It's okay if they're not super leather hard, but at least they're dried out a little bit. Okay, so I am not going to make my tree right now, so I'm going to put that in my Ziploc. Okay, and then these aren't super dried out yet, so I'm just going to put them to the side. If they were drying a lot, I'd put them in my Ziploc. Okay, so to make my form, I've got the roof pieces and the side pieces for this. So the roof and the side for my little house. So I need slip and a fork or some kind of scoring tool. So I've got my slip, I've got my fork, and some kind of a stick. And then I also will need some soft clay for the seams. That's what I'm going to be using to put together my slab house. So for the seams, I just have a little bit of my clay that I've been keeping for recycling. All right, so to put together my form, I'm going to do the sides first. So I need to first bevel the edges so that they don't go together unevenly. So a lot of times artists use knives to bevel the edges, and they put them against the edge of the table like you saw in the video. But you can find an old gift card or credit card that works pretty well to cut the edges. So you can take it at an angle, and you're just going to cut 45-degree edges. This extra clay is pretty dry, so you could put it in your container of slip or just toss it. So you want to bevel any edges that are going to touch each other. Another option is to take the fork and to really score it, but that will take quite a bit of time. So I recommend that you just bevel the edges with a firm, straight edge. A knife works not as well as something like this, okay? So you want to bevel those edges of your pieces that are going to be fitting together. So every side but the base is what's going to be fitting together. Okay, so after I do that, I do need to score it, so I can either use my stick to score or a fork. And you want to score any edges that are going to be touching. And then you can just use your slip with that tool, or you can apply the slip with your fingers, whatever you prefer to do, but you must score and slip to attach these together. If you don't score and slip, they will crack and come apart. Also, you're adding wet clay to dry clay, so when we're done here, we will lightly spray and wrap this. So after I do that, I put the beveled edges together. If I hadn't beveled the edges, they wouldn't go together this easily. Okay, once I have that beveled edge together, since it's open, it's easier to do it now. So then I will take a little bit of my soft clay and I will roll a coil, and I'm going to put that coil into the seam and then smear it in that seam. You should be able just to smear it if the clay is soft enough. You shouldn't have to add any moisture to it because it just makes it slipperier and hard to use. So you're going to do that, and then up around the corner as well. You will also do that to the outside seam so that you are really preventing them from cracking. So hard slab, the challenge of working with hard slab is that the clay is at different stages of dryness. So when you add wet clay, plastic clay to leather hard clay, they have different drynesses, and so there's more chance that it can crack. I will worry about these edges later. So right now it's just about really getting a good construction of the piece. Then I can do the same thing for the back of my house. So it's very important that you are beveling. That means cutting at a 45-degree angle all of your edges of anything that's going to be attaching. Okay, so now I've got the other side. Just double checking I had the right piece. It's sometimes good to label it. You could just write on it with your tool. So I am not going to do the bottom bevel because I'm just going to keep the bottom open for now. Okay, so now that I have the edges beveled, I want to score all of those parts that are going to attach. It's very important that you score and slip so that the clay glue, the slip, has a place to adhere to. It's okay if your slabs are a little bit softer than you'd think because this is very small. If this was a big form, you would have to spend more time allowing that to get to the leather hard stage. So then the next stage is to add on my other part of the house. So you can either apply with your finger or with this. And I'm going to add on the back of the house form. If it's soft enough, you can even pinch the edges together a little bit, which helps. And then you still want to apply that coil of soft clay inside and outside of your form. That's a really important step to making a slab form. So you want to smooth out all of those pieces and then apply your soft clay. Sometimes you don't have to roll a coil. You can just take really soft clay and smear that into the seam. The coil just makes it easier to get into that seam right there. Okay, now you can find a lot of different ways to turn or attach depending how big your piece is. So now I've got the final back piece before I attach the roof. So once you have the pieces made, it comes together quite easily. Okay, so I've got that slip and score. So I'm going to, again, see how it's flopping a little there? If this was a little more leather hard, it would not do that as much. So you could wait until your piece is a little more leather hard and just put the house that you started into the plastic so it stays that way. Also, this slab is a little bit thinner than the other slabs, so that also could cause some issues with drying. So that's why I recommended yesterday that you make a couple extra pieces so that you have those to work with as you are working on your piece. And then it's also good to go and smooth the bottom or base of the piece as well, just so that you are putting clay in any of those seams. A seam is where the two pieces touch. So it's a little harder to get inside the form, but still very important that you are getting in there with a coil of soft clay. If you need a little bit of water from your slip on your hands for smearing, that's fine as well. And always putting in clay in all of those seams. So you're really attaching and getting those in there. Even for a small little house like this, it's super important that you guys are filling in those seams or you will get cracks in the firing or drying of your piece. Okay, so now I've got that basic form down. So I am going to begin to start on the roof. The roof could overhang or it could be here. Now this is hollow below, so it's okay. So I would want to again bevel. Okay, so the very bottom edge doesn't need to be beveled unless you like the look of that. So you want to bevel the edges and then slip and score. So my Flipgrid video is almost done, but you get the idea of where to go with this. After you're done with attaching all the pieces, you can use that card again to use that to refine your edges and really clean them up. And then a teeny bit of slip on your fingers can also smooth. You don't want to leave all those rough edges. And then it's super important that you lightly spray this with water and put it in its own Ziploc bag without other clay. If you can find one, or wrap it well in saran wrap. But lightly spray it and then wrap it at least overnight so it becomes the same wetness all the way through. If you don't allow it to become the same wetness all the way through, it can crack. There you go.